Welcome to Tuttle Talk, a part of the Real Estate Radio Network. And now, live in studio, offering you a fresh perspective. He's your local real estate and finance expert. He's part of the Common Sense Party, and he's committed to teaching you how to win in any market. Your host, Andy Tuttle.
Good afternoon and welcome to Tuttle Talk on the Real Estate Radio Network, where we teach you what the rich and the banks do, not what they tell you to do, and where we dispel the misconceptions of financial wellness and the local real estate market and show you how following a few key principles really can free you up to focus on the other important areas of your life, like your friends, your family, and the community. It's the most important hour of radio every Sunday right here on 660 AM, The Answer at 3 p.m. Thanks you so much for joining me here in the great state of Texas. I am your host, Andy Tuttle. I've been in the mortgage business for 12 years. I've seen it all. And I've seen a lot of misinformation and a lot of disinformation out there, and that's still out there. And my goal here is to bring you the best financial and real estate professionals from around DFW and around the nation to help you make these smarter decisions and cut through all this muck and mud out there so you can ensure yourself and your family a prosperous future. It's tough work out there. I've made a ton of mistakes. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I try to surround myself with a lot of smart people, and I've been able to do that. And you can learn from my mistakes, and that's what we're here to do so that you don't have to make those and you can be confident and have peace of mind about these decisions, because they're big ones, guys. They really are. And we're here to help you every week with that. Speaking of this week, my gosh, there's been a lot going on. So Lawrence Summers withdrew himself from the Fed chairman race. We'll talk about that and what kind of effect that had on the markets. You probably already know because you look at this past week and have seen the volatility, and we'll talk about why that happened and what you can expect moving forward, especially if you're shopping around for a home right now. We'll also talk to Lars Lofstrand, premier business coach and partner of Halo Group Realty. We're going to finally finish the 5 regrets that most people have in their life, and we want to make sure that that's not your story. So he's going to give you some tips on how to make sure that happens. And then we're going to transition from that into a pretty exciting topic and the importance of having the right mindset as a seller and how that gets in 99% of sellers' ways in the transaction and how you can avoid that and have a lot more success and a much better experience and a more profitable one. And then we'll get with Gabe. He introduced us to an owner of a fantastic roofing company here, First Solution Roofing. We'll talk with Luke, the owner of that company, and get more insight about what's going on in the roofing world. I mean, we've got costs of lumber and everything that have been all over the place. I know you people think, everyone thinks out there, I think everything's too expensive right now. And we'll talk about what's going on in that world and how you can protect yourself and maybe even get a little upgrade to your home with not paying too much. It's amazing what you can do with roofing, and we'll talk to you some more about that. And then, of course, we're going to get to the real-time real estate with John Sturgis today. We got a special guest today about some of the other major mistakes buyers make. And then we have one of my favorite segments, More Cool Tech, with Brian Moore. He's been ahead of the curve. He was talking about Google Chromecast before anybody else, and I'm telling you what, if you were able to listen to that show, you were able to actually get a few, because now they are sold out everywhere. Isn't that right, Brian?
That is correct.
You got to listen to the show. We'll keep you one step ahead. I mean, barely, like a half step ahead, like one day. But you'll get there if you listen to this show. We're just barely ahead. Gabe Abshire, owner of Utility Concierge, by the way, fantastic company. It's so easy to do. You gotta, when you're buying a house or even when you're in your house, you know, you have utility, electricity, security, internet, cable, phone, all that fun stuff. Well, you don't have to make 12 calls. You can make one call to one company. It doesn't cost you anymore. In fact, it'll save you money a lot of times because they'll negotiate better deals for you, and they take care of it all for you. I don't know about you guys, but my hourly rate away from home is worth a lot more than my time at work because I have less of that time. And so it's critical not to spend that doing all this other junk. So let Gabe and his company do it. They've done great work in the past for my clients. Gabe, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, buddy.
In fact, I'm going to surprise you. Brian here worked with your team just this last weekend. Sorry, Brian, to put you on the spot.
No, it's all right.
But I want you to tell us about that experience because you used them just now.
I did. I was getting ready to move, and I texted Gabe. I was like, hey, who should I talk to at your company? His response, go to the website. It's easy.
And I was like,
that's customer service. Don't bother me.
I think I see you every Sunday, and we talk about it, so you should know the website there.
Exactly.
You know?
Proud of him.
And, I was thinking to myself, oh, of course, duh. And so I was like, oh, yeah, great. So instead of going to the website, I actually, had the app on my phone already,
Yep.
fired that bad boy up, put in my name, address, phone number, hit send. Next day, Ryan at his office calls me and he's like, hey, we got these options here at your address. Which ones would you like? And so he hooked me up, got my electricity, cable, internet, all that taken care of. And actually, there's a little side story to that.
Oh, can we tell it? Do we need to censor this?
But no, Ryan and Margo were very helpful. And so they set everything up for me, told me, my credit's not the best. I'm working on that. And so I did have to pay a deposit on my electric, of course. Time Warner, they got that all hooked up for me. Well, apparently there was an old charge from like 5-6 years ago that I completely forgot about. And it was actually, taken off of my credit report. So I thought, hey, it's taken care of. It's done.
Yeah.
So Time Warner calls me the day before the install and says, you have this old balance you need to take care of. And I'm like, no, I really don't. And long story short, they actually showed up the next day and did the install anyway. So hopefully nobody from Time Warner is listening to this.
They're all listening. They all listen.
But I called Ryan at Utility Concierge, and he's like, just let them do it. If something happens, call me. Here's my cell phone number. We will get it taken care of right away. So I have his cell phone number. I mean, I can contact him by carrier pigeon or whatever. I can get a hold of Gabe's staff. They are incredible over there.
Hey, that's awesome. I love to hear that. See, were you a little nervous there, Gabe? No, they're good.
Very confident in my staff.
That's good, yeah. Well, you've had good coaching, so I know that you some good consulting there. Business coaching, our very own Lars Lofstrand here has actually worked with his team, and they are a fantastic team. And you can go to utilityconcierge.com or just go to your app store on iPhone, or is it also on Android?
iPhone only now. Android is coming soon, I heard today.
Okay, cool. So, but iPhone, if you have an iPhone, you can download that app.
Sure.
And then you just put it in Utility Concierge, I would imagine.
That's it.
That's right, because that's what I did. I've had it on my app forever, though. I can't remember. So do that, and you can log in, and it is really that simple. I've done it. Brian's done it. All of our clients do it, and most of the realtors in town now do it. So if they don't know what that is, you may be working with the wrong agent.
Possibly.
Hey, it could happen. Okay, you're listening to Tuttle Talk here on the Real Estate Radio Network. This week, very volatile, very busy. It started out rough this week with Lawrence Summers stepping down from the race. He was going to be the Fed chairman, or was the front runner as the Fed chairman to replace Bernanke. And, here's what happened with the markets on Monday. It was really rough on the bond markets. And the reason that is because the bond markets are a flight to quality. They're a safe haven, right? The safe haven of bonds people talk about. So when you see geopolitical unrest or you see a tragedy happen, and a lot of times money flows out of the stock market, well, you wonder where maybe that money goes. Well, a lot of times it goes into the bond market because they compete for the same investment dollar. Now, you get lower returns on bonds, but they're considered more safe. And so when you hear a flight to quality and those things happen, when the talking heads discuss that on TV, that's what they're talking about. They're going into the safe haven of bonds. Well, people were concerned because right now the Fed, you may have heard of QE or QE2 or QE3, which we're in now, that's just quantitative easing. And so what that is it's just basically the Fed's bond buying program. They were concerned when Lawrence Summers stepped down what was going to happen, because they thought that, oh my gosh, one, they're going to stop buying bonds, which has been on the books for months. And they thought now they're going to stop buying bonds even quicker. We're going to have a spike in rates. We're going to have it's going to hurt employment. All these things were going to happen. Well, turns out the Fed meeting on Wednesday showed that actually they're not going to taper right now at all. And when they do start tapering, it's going to be focused on treasuries. So that was huge, huge for the bond market. And I told you last week that if you weren't locked in to float, and I actually put it in on the Facebook fan page and in some newsletters on Monday, that if you weren't locked in on Monday, it was a good idea to float until Wednesday. And if you listened to me, you saved 0.25% on your interest rate. And so, because that's the improvement that happened on Wednesday. And that's when you have to have someone that's watching that market. You have to have someone that has real-time rates and can watch the bond market. It doesn't matter who's quoting you the best rate. If they don't know what's going to happen and they quote you Friday night and then Monday comes and rates are 0.25% worse, and then they lock you then, and then Wednesday the rates get better by 0.25%, well, my gosh. What did you do? You just lost 0.5%.
What is that like on, say, on a $200,000 house?
So that's a good question. About $33 per eighth. So on a $200,000 financed amount, maybe $50 to $60 a month. So $500 to $600 a year over the life of your loan. You're looking at $18,000 to $25,000.
It's huge.
That's an enormous amount of money.
Wow.
So you think you're saving $200 on closing costs? You're losing a ton of money. So you've got to make smart decisions about that. But that's what's happening. expect that we are still on a rise in interest rates, but you've got to look at what's happening now with what's going on with the Fed and what's going to continue to happen in Syria. Keep your eye on that. If you want to keep tuned to the facebook.com/Tuttle Talk fan page, we'll discuss that and let you know what's happening there. And of course, you can stay tuned into this, and we will keep you posted there as well. Coming up, we're going to talk to John Sturgis in our real-time real estate segment about some of the major pitfalls that you get into when you're buying a home, and then we're going to turn it over to Lars Lofstrand to blow your mind with some insightful psychology. Poof. Stay with us. Welcome back to Tuttle Talk. Thank you so much for staying with us. We are here. I got to tell you, you got to stay till the last segment of this show. I'm going to talk to you about a back-to-work program that will knock your socks off. If you've seen troubled times, if you've seen job loss, if you've seen pay cuts, there is a program for you if that has caused bankruptcy or foreclosure or some issues in your life that you have not been able to buy a home. You can now buy a home. It is a great program, and it's something you need to know about. We'll talk to you about that in the last segment of our show, so stay tuned. But right now, we got the real-time real estate segment here with John Sturgis of Keller Williams Southlake. John, how you doing?
Good afternoon. Great.
Hey, man, good to have you back on the show as always. So, we were talking at last week about sometimes when real estate agents actually, I know this is crazy, they are the professionals, but sometimes get too involved or make some mistakes, some errors in judgments, maybe try to assert themselves too much in the situation. Instead of being the calm in the storm, become the storm itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's happened quite a few times. I think that any agent that's been in this business for any amount of time is going to come across those kind of situations. You have to know how to be, as you said, the calming influence and relax. I mean, I've had agents that, I had one that the buyers and sellers happened to cross paths during the inspection, which we don't always like to have happen. And they had
so the seller's at the house while the buyer's there looking.
While they were there, and of course if the agents aren't there because we're not usually there for inspections. And next thing I know, I'm hearing, well, the sellers told us this, and the sellers are now saying that that's not what they said, and the agents are taking the sellers, side, saying, oh no, that's what they said. And I'm like, well, how do you know you weren't there?
Right.
And they're just digging in deep, and they're going to battle for their sellers, and they really don't even know what the truth of the matter is. And we always try to counsel people, don't try to have those conversations, leave the conversations between the agents. But then the agents get too personally involved because they want to try to feel like, hey, I'm trying to show my worth, and they just try to completely complicate the matter and make it worse than it ever could possibly be. You have to spend so much time unwinding it, and it's ridiculous.
So, yeah, they're drawing battle lines, I think, as you say.
Yeah, they're drawing battle lines instead of reaching across the lines, and everybody's digging in, and at some point in time, no one wants to give an inch. And now you've got complete lockup, and it's just a standstill.
So, yeah, exactly. We have that issue with, sounds like our political process.
Oh, yeah, they learn from the best, from people who want to.
Well, so how do they avoid that? How do you avoid that? What should a buyer and a seller look out for? How if someone gets into that situation and they're not working with, let's say, the agent that knows how to be the calm in the storm, what should they do? How can they protect themselves?
Well, I think obviously the first step is you need to find an agent that is a professional. You need to interview a number of different agents, and you kind of need to gauge their demeanor, and see how they react in person, one-on-one. A lot of that you can pick up a lot of cues from people just by talking to them. I think that sometimes you just don't know when it's coming, until you're in the thick of it. But starting with an agent that does a lot of business, that's professional and has a good reputation is obviously going to be a great start. And from there, you got to rely on them to manage the situation. If for some reason that agent starts getting a little wiggy, things start going a little sideways, I really think if I was the client, I would have to pull that agent aside and say, look, we have to kind of calm it down, take it down a little bit. Let's get back to a normal tone. Let's try to work this out. Let's not all try to be screaming at each other, or out-scream each other.
I totally agree with that. And I'll say this. If you are in that situation, because it's a stressful situation for you out there, there's a lot of information overwhelm. There's 8 different companies on average and 30 people involved in this transaction. We know you're stressed. I know you're stressed. And what John is saying first, which I preach all the time, and you can get the article on my fan page about, is about dealing with a professional, not your Aunt Susie from Minnesota who did real estate 5 years ago and doesn't know Texas, but an actual professional that's in it every day. One of the premier agents out there in the Southlake area right now is John and Misty Sturgis, the Sturgis Group. And so dealing with someone like that is the best way to go. If you don't do that and you find yourself in that situation, everything's going crazy and you see this happening, you have got to step in and pull that agent aside and restore the balance. Because once the two agents start going at it, it's it's game over. You are going to be in a ridiculous situation.
Let me just say one last thing. We know as professionals that buying, selling homes is one of the biggest stressors in life. We know that a lot of stress comes along with that. We approach it from that standpoint, and we try to remain as neutral as possible while being counselors at the same time. But we have to be the voices of reason when it comes right down to it, because they're going to get wiggy about a lot of things.
Yep, appreciate that. That's good advice. I know we took a stray. Real quick, like 30 seconds, what's happening right now in the market? What are you seeing a change over these last couple of weeks?
We're still cooking right along. I mean, things are still pretty hot. I mean, I was just looking at some numbers, and I noted that, our numbers go back to July. We haven't got the August numbers yet, but through July, we did $2.2 billion in sales in the DFW area and surrounding areas, which is up 36% from last year, July of last year.
That's just the Sturgis Group.
Amount.
Just John Sturgis did $2.2 billion. Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
And I'm coming to you from Hawaii right
That's
now.
right. Yeah, that's right. No, that's good. There's a lot of
amazing number.
It's still hot out there, guys. It's still a great market to buy in. Rates are still low. This is an opportune time. If you want to get a hold of John Sturgis right now, especially if you're in the South Lake area, call me 214-736-9696, and we will connect you. If you have any real estate or finance questions right now, you can call us as well, 214-736-9696. We'll be happy to answer your questions and direct you in the right way. So, John, keep crushing it out there, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
You bet. Thank you. You're listening to Tuttle Talk here on the Real Estate Radio Network. Lars, fellow realtor there over at Halo Group and partner. Do you see that a lot as well? Are you seeing that? With realtors out there when you're dealing, because you know every realtor has to deal with another realtor. You guys don't like dealing with part-time realtors any more than anybody else.
Yeah, we absolutely see it. In the end of the day, the agents are also still human beings, and they've got to remember that their fundamental job is not to get emotionally involved in the transaction, especially in a residential transaction. There's huge emotions involved, between the buyer and the seller, and our jobs as agents is to be absolutely neutral, and that's important to understand.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I want to flip-flop how we're going to do this. I want to kind of, since we're talking about agents right now and the psychology of that, let's stay with that, and then we're going to come back with the regrets deal. But on your, talking about selling a home and buying a home and all the stressors, I go to your training. You do a weekly training, and I always get so much out of it. But one of the things we were talking about this week was that activity doesn't equal achievement, and that there's a fundamental flaw with the goal-setting process. And selling your home is a goal. And buying a home is too, of course. And a lot of times you make so many mistakes, and we do. Everyone in the transaction does. But when you're buying or selling a home, there's so many emotions like you talk about, and you have this goal, and you may be focused on the wrong thing. You may be focused on that incorrectly. And Lars, would you expand on that and help people kind of maybe put some red flags in their mind when they know that's going to happen so they can make the right choice?
Well, I think that happens right down to, let's look at a scenario where somebody's selling their house. Often we go to a listing presentation and, where we're up against other agents, and an agent's just been in before us, and the seller will say, oh, this agent's doing all these 1,000,001 things for us, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So often I tell them, don't mistake activity for achievement. So just because they're doing a lot of things, it doesn't mean that they should be doing those things. And that's pretty much in life too, we all get busy being busy, but getting very little done. And that comes down to the goal-setting process too, we set all these goals and we get too many things to do. And I think, as we spoke today in the course was the secret in life is actually learning what not to do. In other words, we need to do the right things, not just to do many things because you can.
Right. And so when you talk about that, I love what you tell sellers, because I think it's a huge misconception out there, and it's very unique. And I want you to listen up here, because you've not heard this from any other realtor out there. And this is why Halo and Lars has helped build so many companies outside of real estate, and why using the same psychology and skill set to help these realtors in our community at Halo be the premier agents, and is because of the questions and understanding like this. So as seller, you usually have a very throw-off question that you ask sellers right up front.
Yeah, the question I ask them right up front, I say, what do you think my job is? And what do you think they answer to that?
I know it. So guys, what do you think most sellers answer?
Sell my house.
Pretty standard. You guys agree?
I would say get me the most money possible.
Yeah.
Sell my house. It all sums out of that.
9 times out of 10, the people say your job is to sell my house. And this is what I say to them. And this almost catches them off guard, but it also gets them to think what our real duty as an agent. And I say my job is not to sell your house. In fact, there's only 3 things that actually sell a house. And those three things are the location of the house, how the house shows, and the price of the house. And our jobs as agents is to make sure we get those three things right. If you get those three things right, the house should sell itself.
Right.
So, and then obviously, we got to help market the house. And then our job really becomes to negotiate and facilitate the deal, as we were talking about earlier, not let our emotions get involved, but to facilitate the deal when somebody does come along and put an offer in, and to negotiate the best price. That's what our real job is not to sell the house. House should sell itself.
So that's very important, because there's a lot of flash and dance out there, and smoke and mirrors and stuff. And sometimes it's just what's assimilated. It's not necessarily a negative thing. It's just what people have assimilated and decided to do. But the truth is, yes, if you are in a really junky neighborhood and the market's down, it doesn't matter what agent you have, you're going to either have to drop the price to align with what the market's doing. So the agent's job is not to sell your house. There's three things that sell your house. Remember that. It's location, you say?
Yeah.
Price?
And location's not even that important, because if you say in the ghetto, somebody's looking at that house in the ghetto, they don't care about the location. That's where they want to live.
That's very, very important stuff. That is a different kind of twist. So if you're looking for a better approach, and I know we don't have time right now, but I kind of want to just focus on this. There's the approach there, and that follows all the way through the process, Lars, because you talk about goal setting, and that there's a fundamental issue there. And I think a lot of times sellers, you talked about it this week, people focus on the results. That's good for the vision, but for the goal day to day, if you focus on the result, you said there was a landmark study done a couple of years ago that they showed that people that set goals weren't necessarily better off than people that didn't. In fact, sometimes they were worse off.
Yeah, sometimes they're worse off. And it's not because the goal setting process is flawed. It's because we tend to focus on the result and not the process.
Exactly. And when you're in it, it's important to focus on the process. If you've made or process, I sound smarter already when I say process. See, it works. I'm just going to stop talking like this, see? It's not exactly, it's more like a British thing. I don't know. It doesn't work. So, it doesn't work. So then when you focus, once you've made the vision, in this case, you're going to sell your house at this. Maybe you work with your realtor to help find out the price point and what works for you, where you're going to move. Okay, now it's time to concentrate on the process. It'll save you frustration. It'll save you from getting upset and trying to get too engaged with the agent, cause a lot of anxiety. You've made the goal. You've made the vision. It's happened. Now focus on the process. It's going to happen.
Well, and that's the agent's job, is to make sure you keep on the process and make sure you keep doing those things on a daily basis you need to do for your house to sell. So if they're focusing on selling the house, I think they've already lost, because then they're not doing the things that it takes to sell the house.
Buddy, I love it. I'm telling you, I just talk with so many agents, and people don't have this mindset. You got a business mindset. I love it. If you want to be involved in that, if you have frustration going on right now and you don't think that your professional has that mindset, or you are thinking about selling your house and want someone that can really help you get a different perspective that is aligned with today's changing environment, call us 214-736-9696. We'll get you hooked up with the right professional to help you. 214-736-9696. At 96. I love your input, Lars. When we come back, we're going to talk about the fifth of the 5 main regrets people have in their lives and how to make sure that that's not your story. So stay with us. Welcome back. You are listening to Tuttle Talk here on the Real Estate Radio Network. Thank you so much for staying with us. I am your host, Andy Tuttle. We're talking now with Lars Lofstrand. He is partner in Halo Group Realty and also an international business coach, and he's brought a lot of his systems to the Halo Group model, which is one of the reasons they're so successful right now. But he brings you, and I try to bring him on here, one of the reasons to bring you a different perspective. And what we've been talking about the last several weeks is the 5 biggest regrets most people have in their life, with the hope of telling you what those are and reminding you and helping you not to make that your story. Lars, thanks for being here, buddy.
So just to remind you want me to go through that
that'd be great.
The 5th one. So just to remind you that the 5 top regrets of the dying, as witnessed by Bronnie Ware, a nurse caring for people with a few weeks to live. So number 1 was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. That was number 1. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Very common one. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. And then the last one of the series of the 5 top regrets is, I wish that I'd let myself be happier. Now, this is a surprisingly common one. Many people don't realize until the end that happiness is a choice. They stay stuck in old patterns and habits. The so-called comfort of familiarity overflowed into their emotions as well as their physical lives. Fear of change had them pretending to others and to themselves that they were content when deep within they longed to laugh properly and have silliness in their lives again. So to end off the series of 5, I'll ask you this question. What is your greatest regret so far, and what will you set out to achieve or change before you die?
I'll let that sit. I actually was thinking about that one myself. No, that's a good question. What is your biggest regret, and what are you going to set out to change so that doesn't happen? Basically, I paraphrase that last part. So, if I'm looking at the 5 regrets there too, me personally, I would probably say work too much is going to be my number one.
Yeah.
Man, and work too hard, if you will. And that's just a part of our society. And I'm going to do my best, and that's what I'm working on now, is to build systems in place so that not only we can have balanced lives, not this month, Brian, but this is slammed this month. We've got a gratitude party coming up next week. I'm so excited. Or this week. But yeah, working too hard and just having a balanced life, because it's so important to be with your family as opposed to providing for your family at the cost of your family, which I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, and I think, we try to do everything. We need to learn to let go. And as I was speaking about today in the course, was that the biggest thing we can learn is to learn to leverage 3 things: time, people or talent, and treasure and money. So those are the 3 things we can leverage to buy ourselves more time and have more balance.
Yeah, time, talents, and I call it resources. I think treasure, you put
treasure
it on there.
Resources, correct.
Yeah, resources as well. All the kinds of different resources in that. So time, talents, and resources, and learning to leverage that is so important. Is there anything else, Lars, on this, because we're wrapping up this series here, that you would say in your time, because you train on this type of stuff all the time, on specifically the 5th one maybe, about being happy, because it talks about that you said that's the biggest regret, is people said, I wish I would have been happier, wish would have let myself laugh more or whatever. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Because people down themselves. I do it all the time, and man, dwell on my mistakes, but never celebrate the victories.
Well, I think, often, and this might sound a little bit weird, but we take life too seriously. Things actually don't matter in the greater scheme of things. I mean, the things we worry about. To ask yourself this question, if somebody called you had all these worries, work worries, etc. Somebody called you and said one of your loved ones was dying. What would happen to those thoughts of those things you're worrying about?
Disappear.
Totally go away. So ask yourself this question: what's truly important to you?
That's a big one, guys, because a lot of the stuff that you think is important is trivial.
Exactly.
And that's why, we talk about it, and I post this stuff on the fan page all the time, but I know it's probably a little corny to some of you, but man, seriously, when you leave, if you're mad at someone, just never, ever, ever leave your house without saying I love you, if you have a loved one there. Just do not have that be the last thing that leaves the door. I'll tell you what, the people on 635, I found out that I actually know I'm one removed from them. Oh. One of my realtor friends actually knows that family.
Oh,
the 635 dump truck accident where the dump truck went over and crushed those people in the car. So you imagine if it was parents, actually, it was a sad thing. But you imagine if they had a parent-child issue where the child was like, screw you, I hate you, parents, and then that happened. Is that what you want to hang around with you for the rest of your life? Don't do that. Celebrate the victories. Don't sweat the small stuff. All the stuff you've heard before. I
think that happens more than we know.
Yeah.
We leave home and we leave things unresolved, and we shouldn't do that. I also think, just to add one more thing right at the end, was I think nobody lies on their deathbed and thinks I should have worked harder. I should have spent more time at work.
Amen to that. Good way to end that segment. Lars, thank you so much. If you want to get access to all of that, you can text to the number 72727. Text 72727 and type the word Talk Now.
Talk Now.
Goodness gracious.
All one word.
All one word, no spaces. Talk Now. All one word, no spaces to 72727. And you'll get the list of all the 5 regrets and all Lars' notes on that. So you can have that and put that up on your wall or put it in a safe place where you can refer to it, guys. Don't make that your story. You're listening to Tuttle Talk here on the Real Estate Radio Network. Remember, if you do want to get a hold of us or any of our offerings, you can also text that number, or you can get access to everything at andytuttle.com. andytuttle.com. Okay, we have a special guest here today, that Gabe finally bringing some value to the show. instead of just, here it goes.
I try, buddy. I try.
I know. Luke Prock is the owner of First Solution Roofing, and correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, Luke, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit of roofing, because I tell you what, I know there's always storms in Texas. It's like the most expensive state for insurance now too. It's the most. I think they say it's the most dangerous state because we got windstorms, we got hail, we got tornadoes.
Right in Tornado Alley, right on the bottom. This year kind of shifted more north, but it's gonna always affect everyone's prices. That's why it's the most expensive, because everyone files these claims and they look at everyone cumulatively and set your premiums.
Right, and then I'll tell you what, they're not getting any better. That's for sure. Well, I know you've been in construction for over a decade, and so you know what you're looking at when you're looking at a roof. And typically, I think people. I know there's a lot of people out there that say, I don't need to check my roof. Nothing's wrong. There was a storm, but I don't see any damage. But that's not always the case, is it?
Never. Every single storm, if you have hail, you want to get somebody out there that's qualified and knows what they're doing, and not necessarily just to look at the roof, because it is a full property coverage. I mean, whenever a storm comes, it hits your fence, it hits your siding, it hits the fascia, the eaves, everything. Right. So you don't want someone just that comes out and says, hey, I'll take care of your deductible. Hey, I'll do this. Don't worry about it. It's going to be a free roof. Well, that's a common practice in this, and what people don't realize is there's under 5% of contractors that actually do it right. And I mean, there's ways to legally subsidize deductibles, but that's just all in the process. But they want to get somebody that knows what they're talking about, knows what they're doing. They can check them on BBB, Angie's List, check their websites, references, and get someone that is really going to take care of them and make sure that they have the best ethics behind them.
Right, and that's right, because there's a lot of like what do they call them? Storm chasers out there.
Yeah. So last year when the tornadoes came through, there's 4,000 roofing companies in DFW.
What?
Over 4,000.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up also. So many companies, they come in from out of town and just...
Well, that's not necessarily to be knocked. I don't... I mean, we go around, we travel too. We'll chase a storm. I don't like to be the storm chaser. I call myself the American Dream Restorer.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Right. There's nothing to knock that as long as it's a good company. And I don't want to talk against my company, but if you find somebody that you trust and they're good, you can make sure that you're getting taken care of, and you check their references. Then there's not really an issue of being out of state, as long as they don't have leaks in the future and you have to get them to drive from Kansas back here to repair it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you have someone that is reputable, that does check out, like you say, on BBB and Angie's List. And I know that one of the things I find is, one, if you let a leaky roof go and you don't know about it, it gets into your attic, it can cause mold issues, it can cause all kinds of other issues.
That's a terrible word.
Don't say it. Can we censor that? Mold?
Well, insurance policies do not cover mold. You have to, it's verbiage. It's all verbiage. Microbacteria.
Microbacteria. But see how that's dangerous? So don't let it go. And here's the thing, too. Also, when you get a new roof on, and if it does cost you your deductible, $1,500, $2,000, whatever that is, it's way better than spending the 10 or 15 grand it could cost you for a roof and a fence. Yeah. And first of all, it makes it feel like a new house. You get a new fence, you get a new roof. Man, you feel like, hey, this is a bright place, right?
Yeah.
And second, if you it's going to come up on the inspection later when the buyer tries to buy it. If you can get it done now, one, it'll speed up the process. It's covered, and it increases the sellability, not necessarily the value, and you know what I mean, but the sellability of your home because it's fresh and new, and that's what is nice. And the inspection, Luke, is free, correct?
The inspection is 100% free. It's a $200 to $300 fee typically. We do it 100% free just because that's business.
That's right. Playing the numbers, which is smart.
And then I also wanted to mention for your real estate agents, one thing that I've getting into and it's starting to be a little bit successful is once you have a house come on to market, we can go out and inspect it. And if the homeowner originally has insurance and everything is copacetic with it, if I find damage, I can replace a lot of this stuff for free. Not for free, for the deductible.
Right.
But, it costs them $1,000, $800, $1,500, and then they have a new roof, they have new siding, they have new paint, fascia, gutters, everything. And then that just increases the value of that property and makes it easier to sell.
That's correct, because in some cases it does increase the value. So, guys, it's a no-brainer. We talk to my clients all the time and say, please get an inspection, please get an inspection. Guys, it's a no-brainer. Just don't think about it, just do it. Call us 214-736-9696. Let's get you hooked up with a free inspection. Take out an hour out of their day, maybe. They don't have to be there for the whole thing.
Depending on damage, between 45 minutes and an hour and a half.
They're still in the house chilling out.
Oh, yeah.
So, look, let them do it. Find out, and then you can make the decision. But you got to get it done because there's a there's a clock ticking on how long the insurance will let that be covered. So take advantage of it. 214-736-9696, and we will take care of you by hooking you up with First Solution Roofing. Luke, thank you so much for being on the show.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
You bet. All right, coming up, we are going to talk about the Back to Work program. If you've suffered job loss, pay cuts, etc., stay tuned. You may be able to buy a house a lot sooner than you think, and then we're going to get to more cool tech. I know you got something big for us this week, Brian, so stay with us. Welcome back. I know you do. I'll let you do it one of these times.
I got to practice. That's big shoes to step into.
It is. Big shoes to step into, guys. Welcome back to Tuttle Talk. Thanks so much for staying with us. We're wrapping up. I wanted to tell you about this. It is the Back to Work program. FHA, it is a program they have now that, a lot of people experienced heartache and job loss and, been laid off or had a 20% or more pay cut in their job. Just to keep their job. And because of that, you couldn't pay your bills. You had maybe a foreclosure or a bankruptcy or a short sale or some major event in your life that said, hey, guess what? Well, now you got to wait 2 years from a bankruptcy or 3 years from a foreclosure or whatever it is. And you wanted to buy a house, but you can't. Or you know someone that has wanted to buy a house, but they can't. Well, now you may be able to. Because they've come out with the program, and FHA is behind it, that says that instead of having to wait 2 years or 3 years now from an event like that, you only have to wait 12 months. Now, if there are obviously some guidelines to that and restrictions, right? So if that happened and then you got a job back and you do this, but you still never paid your bills on time, or you didn't pay your bills on time beforehand, and it's just one thing in a line of you not paying your bills, well, that's different. But for the person that took care of things and then they hit tragedy, that's who this is for. And I know there's a lot of you out there. I have a lot of my, friends and family. It's been tough the last several years, and we've had tough unemployment and all those things. So this is a program for you. If you have wanted to get into a home and you haven't been able to, and you think that there's no hope for you, there is. And I want you to know that you can call us at 214-736-9696, 214-736-9696, and we can talk to you about that. If you're not ready for that, maybe you just have a question that you want to send through email, you can go to answers@andytuttle.com. Answers@andytuttle.com, and you can ask your questions there, and we'll just have a conversation with you. We want to help you. I am a branch manager of Real Estate Mortgage Network here in Dallas, and that's my passion, and my team's passion is to make this process different and better for you. We know there's we have the lowest rates in our history and the highest foreclosure rates. I say it all the time. It's not all about the rate, and it's about you and your home and your family and your future, and we want to set you up for that. So this is one way to do it. So we're happy to do it and want to help you with that. If you need that, call us 214-736-9696, and we will look forward to taking care of you and setting you up to get the American dream part of it, which is owning a home. It's a great thing to do. Okay. I hope you take advantage of that. Pretty good stuff, huh, guys?
Yes, sir.
Can you believe that? I mean, it's about time they come up with something that actually may work. They've done they had HARP, and they call it and HARP 2, and those things never worked because it all sounds good in theory, but no lender would ever do it. Looks like some lenders, or us at least, and a couple others are actually going to support this and get behind it. So as much as they can. So that's really a good thing to see. Okay, Brian.
Yes.
It is our favorite segment, More Cool Tech with Brian Moore. Brian, be more, don't be less. What do you got?
I can't tell you how many times I hear that, like almost daily, how many times a week. I'm going to start charging you every time before that,
I should charge you.
So I can make more, not less.
Nice.
So what I got today, everybody's going crazy about Apple iOS. You know what? I'm not talking about that because it's
old news already.
Yeah, that came out back on Wednesday. Most of the people have it by now. What I'm talking about is something called Revestor. Andy, you and I had this conversation once before of why do you not own any rental properties? And I even targeted you. I was like, hey, you don't have any rental properties? I thought you were an investment guy. Come on. And so basically what I did was I did a little research into investment properties. There is a site out there. It was actually featured on that show Shark Tank. And this guy
They didn't like that.
They didn't, but since then, the guy's actually found several investors that did like it. It's turned it into a phone app, a website. What this Revestor.com does, that's REVESTOR.com. You can go on there, type in any address, zip code, whatever, look at properties that are available. It will show you the cash flow you can make from it. For example, here's a house here listed at $81,500. Your estimated cash flow each month, $213, right there in your pocket. Return on investment, 140%. I mean, that's incredible. What else gives you a 40% return?
Please repeat that up for me.
Revestor.
Revestor.
It's
That is awesome.
It's like investor, but it's a revestor.
Okay, here's what I want. My real estate investor friends, I want you that are out there right now, I want you to download this app. I want you to test it on some of your properties and tell me how accurate it actually is. Because one of the concerns I had about this when I saw it on Shark Tank was that, it went off of the appreciation deal. It used some algorithms to tell you what your house is going to be worth. But you can't do that. You can't make an equity play or a yield play all the time. And I don't know with it's conjecture there. So it's got to be good at you got to be making money at the purchase. So maybe he's changed some stuff. So we're gonna have some guys on in a few weeks that own hundreds of units, and we're gonna talk about some other apps and some other ways to invest. So I think it's a great idea. Investing in real estate is an awesome idea, unless you can get a bigger return in your business, which is what I did. But if that's not the case, and you should still own real estate, but look at this app, guys. I want to hear your feedback from this.
Yes, absolutely. I will post the link after the show, and I want to get people's feedback on this for sure.
Tell me if it's worth it.
Yes.
I mean, you got to do your due diligence, but just to bring those to the top.
I think it's great. I want to see those numbers really work, though. Yeah, do that. Gabe, you do it too, because I know you own property. So do that, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Brian, thank you for that one. Controversial today on the app deal.
I know.
Got you in trouble almost. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this hour of Tuttle Talk. That's it for today's show. You can tune in next week, where we're going to talk to some wealth builders, speaking of more real estate and how to build your wealth with real estate. And then we'll have some more with our great expert contributors. I want to thank Gabe, Lars, thank you, Luke, for being here today, Brian, and of course Dan Bradford, our production director, and the entire family here at 660 AM. The Answer, remember, you can reach out to us, 214-736-9696. You can go to andytuttle.com for all of this information and all past shows. And of course, you can join the conversation at facebook.com/Tuttle Talk. Thank you for listening to Tuttle Talk, where we're making financial intelligence a priority in the community. Have a great weekend.
You've been listening to Tuttle Talk on 660 AM The Answer. You can reach Andy at 214-736-9696. That's 214-736-9696. Or email him, questions@andytuttle.com. Don't forget to become a fan of his show by going to facebook.com/Tuttle Talk. You can also catch previous shows by going to andytuttle.com.